Isadora, we are all most intrigued to hear.
Hello again, guys. Chris here. The storyline of Hogwarts Legacy is as wondrous and whimsical as it is dark and foreboding. Many of the fans, myself included, enjoyed the more detailed view into the macabre and darker aspects of magic that we had not been given a chance to experience in the original Harry Potter universe. We got to see in more detail the horrors and damage that can be done with magic rather than the usual implied dangers or wizards or witches shuddering at the mere mention of dark magic, which usually does a bang-up job of derailing the conversation. Hogwarts Legacy gives us the why and how of it all, which in our opinion at Chrisbkingdom is a much needed breath of fresh air for the universe. I mean, obviously it does not answer every Wizarding World mystery such as how a Horcrux is made, including incantations for instance, but it does a pretty damn good job allowing us to experience and struggle against the very real dangers the darker aspects of magic can pose. This brings us to the topic of today's video, which are the holders of a great secret. No, not the kind that you write into your diary, but one that has world-shattering effects. This is one you don't tell anyone, no matter what. Why, you ask?
You know why? Because if I tell you, you tell your friends.
Because this secret is dangerous in the wrong hands. In this video, we are going to explore the organization that was formed for the purpose of guarding not only one, but two very dangerous secrets, so you're going to want to watch this video to the end to find out all about it. I give you the keepers: Percival Rackham, Charles Rookwood, Niamh Fitzgerald, and Bakar. By the way, if you missed our explanation of Ominous Gaunt and Sebastian Sallow, go check them out in our Hogwarts Legacy playlist after you finish this video. Also, if you like what we do here and want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell icon with your best cast Flipendo spell, so you never miss when the new video drops. And don't forget to leave a comment on the video, even if it's just an emoji. It lets us know that you're here. So without further ado, this is the Keepers Explored. Who are the Keepers and their leader, Percival Rackham? We will start with the leader and founder of the Keepers organization, Percival Rackham. We're first introduced to Rackham indirectly through the mysterious case given to Professor Fig by his colleague George Arswick during the carriage ride to Hogwarts. George tells Fig that he was sent the case by the professor's own wife only months before her untimely death, and no matter what he tried, he could not open it, as the case was sealed with some powerful unknown magic. As Professor Fig studies the case, he noticed it was made of goblin metal and bears an unfamiliar symbol. The new 5th year student also noted that he can see a strange glow emanating from the case as well. Both Professor Fig and his colleague admit they do not see any glow coming from the case, which gives us a clue that the glow can only be seen by someone who can perceive this strange magic. When the new 5th year student handles the case, it unlocks almost immediately as if it could sense their magical signature and reveals a key with the same symbol adorning it as the case. But before anyone could do or say anything further, the back of the carriage was bitten off by a rogue dragon, killing George Arswick in the process. So as the dragon makes another attempt to destroy the rest of the carriage and devour Professor Fig and the new 5th year student like a pack of M&Ms, they jump from the carriage midair before accio-ing the key, only to find out it was a port key, which transports them to the dilapidated remains of what would later be found out to be the home of Percival Rackham. As they explored the ruins, they found statues of an old wizard that neither of them recognized, and a large mural on the wall depicting the same wizard and events he had no doubt predicted. These events were clearly of great importance to whoever the wizard was, considering they took the time to preserve them in stone on a mural. Professor Fig notes that this seems to have been the home of a seer. If you are unfamiliar with what a seer is, simply put, a seer is a wizard or witch who is gifted with the ability to interpret the future. Some are better at using their powers than others, of course. Two well-known seers in the Harry Potter universe that automatically come to mind are Gellert Grindelwald and Sybil Trelawney. For instance, Sybil Trelawney was famous for predicting the fall of Lord Voldemort, but otherwise was not really a very skilled or particularly powerful witch, while Gellert Grindelwald, on the other hand, was a very gifted wizard and an exceptionally powerful seer who could perceive future events with great accuracy, giving him even more of an advantage against his enemies. Percival Rackham, on the other hand, had more innocent intentions toward the use of his power. In the alcove behind the mural, the new 5th year student finds a wall made of an enchanted crystallized stone with the same glow as seen on the port key container from the carriage. Just like before, Professor Fig could not see what the student could, which further validates that whoever set up this enchantment only wanted those who could perceive the same mysterious magic that made the enchantments to access them, or rather, they would be the only ones capable of accessing them. When touched, the wall acted as a portal transporting Professor Fig and his student to Gringotts Bank, where the key from the flask turned out to be meant for a very special vault. And not only is the vault special, but we seem to be in an area of Gringotts that is not accessed by the rank and file of the Wizarding World. A special service, if you will. Noticeably, in this area, we only see one lone goblin acting as the area's attendant, and clearly the goblin banker has been waiting for a very long time, as we have never seen a goblin sleeping at his post, leastwise at Gringotts Bank. So upon waking the goblin from his slumber at the podium, he excitedly assumes that the two visitors are here for vault number 12 to the professor and the student's surprise. So whoever led them to find the enchanted wall at those mysterious ruins also had orchestrated this meeting at Gringotts as well. Apparently, the building of Vault Number 12 was commissioned not long after the founding of Gringotts Bank, which was over 400 years ago prior to the main storyline, according to the Goblin Banker. During the cart ride to the oldest vaults reside in the lowest catacombs of the bank. When they finally arrive at the vault, the Goblin Banker reveals that a single goblin has been stationed at his desk for hundreds of years, and in that time no one has visited Vault Number 12, not even once. So it explains why he was excited to finally see someone visit Vault Number 12 after so long. As instructed by the unknown commissioner of Vault Number 12, the Goblin Banker closes the door and seals it shut right after Professor Fig and the new 5th year student enters it, sealing both of them inside. The clever professor reasons that they would have to somehow earn their way out of this vault. Someone was testing them, but they did not know who just yet, so the only thing they could do was work their way through the trials, dueling various guardians and solving a variety of puzzles until the wisps of ancient magic led the 5th year student to a pensieve with a single vial suspended over it. We are then reunited with Professor Fig after we were separated in the vault. When Professor Fig takes the vial and empties its contents into the pensieve, he explains the liquid is the memories of whoever led them all this way. Inside the memory, they witness two strange wizards conjuring the various columns and ornate architectures of the room they now find themselves standing in, and are now privy to the conversation between the two wizards. The portkey, the enchanted stone wall back at the ruins, and even the chamber and all of the other obstacles that the new 5th year student and Professor Fig now find themselves working through were all created using what the strange wizard referred to as an ancient magic and can only be accessed by someone who can wield it. Like the two wizards in the memory, Percival Rackham and Charles Rookwood. According to Rackham, the trials are to test the wizard or witch who embarks upon them to see if they are worthy of the invaluable knowledge of ancient magic and the responsibility that accompanies it. We then see Percival Rackham extract his own memory and place it in the same vial that we found suspended over the pensieve, verifying that the whole path we were led on, the memory and Vault Number 12, were all of Rackham's doing, all to find someone that could be entrusted with this level of power. The memory then ends. After Renruck barges into Rackham's vault and triggers the security enchantments, a giant guardian is summoned, giving the student and professor the distraction they needed to leave the vault via the ancient magic archway at the back of the vault, while Renruck and his loyalists stayed behind to battle the guardian. The portal lets them out on Hogwarts grounds, giving us a clue as to who Rackham was in his life, a past Hogwarts professor. Now, what does Percival Rackham and the new 5th year student have in common, you might ask? They both started Hogwarts in their 5th year rather than their 1st year for some reason. Well, reasons unknown, and they both developed the ability to detect ancient magic at the same age. This is also true for Isadora Morganach, whose ancient magical abilities revealed themselves at the same time in her life, so this cannot be brushed off as some odd coincidence. It seems that if ancient magic is to manifest in a witch or wizard, it will do so during their 15th birthday, as Isadora, Professor Rackham, and the current 5th year student all started being able to detect ancient magic at the same age. As a student attending Hogwarts, Rackham was sorted into Hufflepuff House and started honing his abilities in ancient magic. It is unclear who helped him in this endeavor, or did he do it all himself. I mean, he was, after all, an exceptionally talented wizard, which is why he in his adult life acquired the position of divinations professor at Hogwarts under headmistress Niamh Fitzgerald, and founded the Keepers organization with the headmistress and their colleagues Charles Rookwood and Bakar. Rackham had honed his own ancient magic to a level that scared him, so he wanted to prevent this level of power from falling into the wrong hands at all costs. His reasoning was only manifest when the tragedy of Isadora Morganach happened. We will save that conversation about what happened between Isadora and the Keepers for another video, because when we say it was tragic, we really mean tragic. Professor Rackham's trial is the first trial of the game and takes place in Bakar's tower. There is a formidable guardian that is enchanted to protect the path to the pensieve. Upon its defeat, the path to the pensieve and another of Professor Rackham's memories are revealed. In this memory, we see Professor Rackham amazed at the level of proficiency Isadora has shown with ancient magic and her ability to shape the world around her. Rackham notices something is bothering her.
What is it?
My father isn't getting better. I don't think he'll ever recover from the death of my brother. The drought was years ago, but the pain of losing him is as deep for him now as if it had happened only yesterday. He doesn't need pretty pillars, he needs peace. What if I could help him, Professor?
You do so much for your father already.
It's not enough. I want to take away his pain.
And she informs him that her father is getting worse and he has not spoken since the death of her little brother. She wants to end her father's suffering by using ancient magic to remove the pain. The wise old wizard carefully tries to advise her that human emotions are too complex to be meddled with and should be just accepted as a natural way of life. Dismayed with his answer, she simply walks away from him without another word, and she cannot accept letting things play out the way they are, especially when she believes she has been granted the solution to the problem. The memory then shifts to both Rackham and Rookwood welcoming Isadora back to Hogwarts, but this time as a colleague and the new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. The memory ends after Isadora invites them both and the keepers to her home. A drought-ridden hamlet built in the shadow of a castle. Charles Rookwood. During his time as a student attending Hogwarts, Charles Rookwood was sorted into Slytherin House. Not long after graduating school, he later became the Transfiguration Professor at Hogwarts and joined the Keepers organization along with his colleagues. He was also Percival Rackham's closest friend. After narrowly escaping Ranrock and his followers in Rackham's vault, the new 5th year student leaves the locket that they found there in Professor Fig's keep to study and hopefully shed some light on what to do next. Fig discovers an inscription in the locket, and when he reads it aloud, a map of Hogwarts appears on his desk. Upon studying the map, the new 5th year student sees traces of ancient magic around the area of the map where the restricted section is found. With a little help from Sebastian Sallow, the new 5th year student is able to get into the restricted section where another preliminary trial is found. It was inconveniently located in the catacombs directly under the restricted section of the library. So, as we work through this preliminary trial, we are rewarded with yet another artifact left for us to find by the Keepers, a book that contains another memory. As the new 5th year student approaches the book, it opens and pours the memory into the pensive below it. The memory belonged to Charles Rookwood. Inside the memory, we see him and his fellow keepers walk up from a high cliff that surveys this small hamlet below. The keepers look around at the dire conditions that the people were living under due to a terrible drought ravaging the whole hamlet. The keepers then use their powers of ancient magic to conjure a rainstorm and bring all of the drought-ravaged grasslands and flowers back to life in not only the hamlet of Feldcroft, but the surrounding forests as well. If you watched any of the other Hogwarts Legacy content on this channel, then you already know we at Chrisbkingdom believe the cliff where they all stood had to be near the grounds of Rookwood Castle, as it is located on the only range above Feldcroft. So after the keepers finished their good deed, Rackham notices that a single little girl was able to see what they had done. This little girl was none other than Isadora Morganach, albeit very much younger. Now we want you to put a pin in this, as this little girl is going to play a very big role in the story later on. Rookwood's memory then switches to a secret meeting of the Keepers where an older Isadora, who is now attending Hogwarts, is summoned by Charles Rookwood and his colleagues after a conversation that he and Isadora had about the beautiful spirals of magic that she saw years ago when the Keepers visited and saved her hamlet in Feldcroft. They told Isadora that what she had witnessed that day was ancient magic, and that in the wrong hands it can be very dangerous, so knowledge of it must be held by only a select few. Former headmistress Fitzgerald goes on to say that they would be willing to train Isadora, and Professor Rackham would be her mentor on how to wield ancient magic if she could master all that Hogwarts had to teach her. This memory then ends. After completing Professor Rackham's trial and returning to the map chamber, the new 5th year student and Professor Fig are greeted by the portrait of Professor Charles Rookwood. His trial is held at Rookwood's castle in Feldcroft. The castle is also home to one of the repositories of dark emotions and ancient magic that Ranrock and Charles Rookwood's namesake and descendant Victor Rookwood, who is a notorious dark wizard who runs an illegal poaching enterprise, are after. While the Rookwood family got kind of crazy in future generations, am I right? After completing the trial and getting to the pensive, we witness Professor Rookwood's next memory. This memory is directly what happened after Isadora had invited the Keepers to her home in the memory we found in Rackham's trial. We see Charles Rookwood and the rest of the Keepers happily headed to visit their new colleague and newest Keeper member, Isadora. Charles is very excited to hear what Isadora has been up to during her travels. Before he could knock on the door, Isadora opens it, excited to see her fellow Keepers and delighted to show them what she had been working on. She explains that she has been conducting research into her theory of using ancient magic to remove pain and negative emotions from others. She then goes on to introduce her father to her colleague. He is depressed and has not spoken a word since the death of Isadora's little brother. She then demonstrates her research by removing the pain from her father using ancient magic and putting its essence into a jar. This horrifies Professor Rackham at the ramifications of what she had done and how different those magical traces removed from her father looked in comparison to the ancient magic he has seen before. Guys, if you think this is bad, it is only going to get worse between Isadora and the rest of the keepers. Master of Death and Acceptance, Headmistress Niamh Fitzgerald. After we get back to the map chamber and confirm to the portraits of Charles Rookwood and Percival Rackham that we have triumphed over the second trial, we are then introduced to former Headmistress Niamh Fitzgerald. During her time as a student at Hogwarts, Niamh was sorted into Ravenclaw House and eventually became the headmistress of the school. She has an unwavering belief in the potential of the students of Hogwarts and even goes so far as to say so when we first meet her in her portrait in the map chamber. In common Ravenclaw fashion, she devises a very unique location for her trial and asks for time to prepare it. This is good because we are given a chance to strengthen our spells before we enter this trial. Niamh's trial can be difficult to say the least. After returning to the map chamber and telling former headmistress Fitzgerald about the goblins that are searching for the repositories, she wants to waste no more time in getting us to her trial. Her trial is located inside the headmaster's office in Hogwarts along with her other portrait.
It is. I had hoped that when the time came, the occupant of that office would be of help to us. Unfortunately, this headmaster seems wildly unconcerned with anything but himself. You'll need to access the office while he's away.
I understand. Very well. I'll find some way to get in.
Good. I shall meet you in my portrait there. Until then.
Niamh admits that she had hoped that whoever the current headmaster was would be more helpful to the students and would become the new keeper, but she agrees Headmaster Black is only concerned for himself, so she advises us to try to access the headmaster's office when he is away. We then pay a visit to Professor Fig in his office and tells him that we will need to get into the headmaster's office to complete the third trial. Professor Fig reasons that Headmaster Black's house elf would more than likely know the password to his office. Fig has already devised a plan and suggests that we use Polyjuice potion so we can look and sound exactly like Headmaster Black. We drink the potion and transform into the headmaster, which begins a truly hilarious side quest sequence as we search for his house elf, Scrope. We find Scrope in the Great Hall polishing the podium. As we do our best to emulate the pompous drawl of Headmaster Black, we command Scrope to tell us the password. It is the Black family motto, always pure, but it has to be spoken in French.
Well, Master knows that Scrope's French is most pitiful. Oh, very well. Toujours pure.
When we are finally in the headmaster's office and are greeted by former headmistress Fitzgerald's portrait, she instructs us to approach the pedestal in the antechamber and read the enchanted book that appears there. The book transports us into its pages. It is like a bizarro world and fables all rolled into one. Niamh says in this world we must move swiftly and cautiously, as throughout the world we must hide from the various creatures and death himself. She warns us that in this world, as in life, death takes many forms. This world has 3 phases, and each one rewards us with one of the 3 deathly hollows after completing each phase. At the end of the first phase, the Cloak of Invisibility is rewarded. Upon completing the second, the Elder Wand is rewarded. So just like in the tale of Beetle and the Bard, the last enemy to conquer is death himself. We battle death and its minions using the Elder Wand, and after the death is defeated, we are rewarded with the Resurrection Stone, beginning the final phase of Niamh's trial. We walk through the cemetery with bereaved mourners all crying over the death of Niamh, and we finally found her lying on a pedestal, and we use the Resurrection Stone to bring her shade back to life. And her shade awakens and leads us to her pensive while she tries to instill her wisdom into us. She is trying to teach us the concept of acceptance. Isadora could not accept that there is both happiness and pain in the world. There are ups and there are downs. You can't have one without the other. Isadora wanted to remove all pain, but in reality all she succeeded in doing was creating a big tragedy, as we see in Niamh's memory. The traces of negative emotions allowed Isadora to enhance her own magic and use it as a source of power. She explains to Niamh that she believes it would be possible to harness all collected negative emotions tainted with ancient magic. The memory ends with Niamh trying to convince Isadora that what she is doing is wrong. Isadora, on the other hand, believes that the Keepers fear ancient magic, which is why the Keepers have chosen to keep it to themselves. She chooses to embrace it. In other words, the Keepers and Isadora at this point have 2 very different ideologies as to how ancient magic should be dealt with and used. The Master of Magical Beasts, Son Bakar. Son Bakar was born in a Muggle community located in Yemen. When he became aware of his magical abilities, he left his home and came to Hogwarts, where he was sorted into Slytherin House. Side note, isn't it an interesting coincidence that there are two Slytherins in the Keepers organization, Charles Rookwood and Son Bakar, instead of anyone being a Gryffindor? I just find that to be a weird coincidence. Anyway, sometime after he graduated Hogwarts, he landed the position of Care of Magical Beasts Professor. Not long after that, he was made aware of ancient magic and became one of the Keepers. We first encounter Professor Bakar's portrait after we leave the enchanted book, where former head mistress Niamh Fitzgerald's trial took place and released us back into the map chamber, signifying that we have successfully completed the third trial. Bakar is quite surprised to see a student taking such rigorous trials. When the new 5th year student asks Bakar about the painful emotions that Isidora was inhaling and harnessing his power in Niamh's memory, Bakar is quickly offended and becomes quite reluctant to reveal the location of his pensive and memory to someone who, as he says, has not shown any understanding of the responsibility of power. We try to convince him that we do understand and need his help, as the repository at Rookwood's castle has already been accessed by the evil goblin Ranrock. Furthermore, he has learned to harness the contents of the repositories as a source of power and plans on using that power to wage war on all of wizard kind. To his credit, Professor Bakar does acknowledge the severity of the situation, but he still is hesitant to help the new 5th year student without further consideration, and says he must have time to confer with the other keepers before he makes his final decision to guide us to his trial. After that, we have a pretty lengthy conversation with Professor Fig, telling him that Ranrock has already been digging in locations associated with the names of the keepers. Fig suggests we go see what Ranrock is doing and see if we can gather information on the whereabouts of the next trial from our recon mission if the keepers won't tell us anything more. After meeting up with Sebastian Sallow to conduct the recon mission on Ranrock and his followers' next movements, we soon found another piece of the triptych, completing it and transporting us back to the Undercroft, where a pensieve appears right behind us. As the new 5th year student and Sebastian Sallow delve into the pensieve, they witness a memory belonging to Isidora Morganach. She tries to comfort her father and tells him that she cannot bring her brother back to life, but she can give her father peace. This seems to be the same account of events that we saw in Charles Rookwood's memory, but this time it's told from Isidora's perspective. The memory then shifts to Isidora's conversation with the master goblin craftsman Bragbor the Boastful at the door of her home. Excited with her accomplishment, she tells him her experiment worked, and this time she is going to need him to build something much bigger to contain the magic left over from her pain removal spell, and how the power from it, if used correctly, can be used to do even more good. This memory ends with us being given a much better understanding of Isidora's perspective of what she was working towards while she was alive. It was the keepers themselves that destroyed Isidora's portrait to keep her quiet and her ideas away from future generations that she could influence. Isidora was a great student, so I think it's safe to say that she learned very well about the benefits of keeping secrets in not so conspicuous places, especially considering the growing rift between her colleagues and herself concerning ancient magic. After the new 5th year student leaves the Undercroft and he heads to the coastal mines, which is one of the places where Ranrock and his loyalists have been building their giant drills and digging for the next repository, we witness Ranrock announcing the completion of the newest drill, bringing them closer to war with the wizarding world. We destroy the giant drill by hitting the beams holding the ceiling of the mines in place, causing a cave-in. We are then confronted by Ranrock himself, and worse, Victor Rookwood has caught Lodgok with the journal that would lead Ranrock to the last repository. Ranrock questions his brother as to why he is there in the first place and notices the book he is holding. Upon looking through the book, Ranrock sees that it is Bragbor's last journal that he's been searching for all this time, but it has been in Lodgok's keep all along. Ranrock sees this as a great betrayal of goblin kind and deems his brother Lodgok a traitor. In his anger and with Bragbor's last journal in his possession, Ranrock declares he has no longer any need for Lodgok or any of them and mercilessly executes Lodgok on the spot, causing his body to hit the cavern wall so hard it causes another cave-in. Victor Rookwood takes this as a golden opportunity to hit Ranrock with the killing curse and take the journal for himself, but misses when Ranrock dodges it. The new 5th year student makes his exit via a nearby mine car and heads directly back to the map chamber to inform Son Bakar and the rest of the keepers that the location of the final repository is now known by Ranrock. Professor Bakar is shocked at hearing that Bragbor left journals of his dealings with Isidora and the building of the repositories. Son Bakar admits that the keepers had obliviated Bragbor to keep all information concerning the repositories and ancient magic safe. You tell Professor Bakar about the leftover memory from Isidora, and this finally convinces the keepers to tell us the location of the final trial. The final trial requires an exceptional level of magical skill and a nuanced ability to interact with beasts, according to Professor Rackham. We find the giant face of a Graphorn hidden behind ivy in a crevice carved into a great mountain marked by giant columns and located at the Cragcroft shores. Bakar's pensive is found directly behind this wall, but we have to find a way inside. This brings us to a pretty fun and challenging fight with the particularly fierce Graphorn called the Lord of the Shore. Once we defeat the Graphorn, we have the choice of either riding it back to Cragcroft shores or capturing it in our knapsack. Once the Lord of the Shore has been placed on the pedestal, the stone face reacts and gives entrance. Inside, we meet Son Bakar's portrait again, and he has finally changed his mind about our worthiness. Son Bakar is much harder to convince than the others, considering Isadora turned out not to be who she said she was, as we witness in Professor Bakar's memory. Inside the memory, we see him visiting Isadora's house. When no one answers his call, he enters the house to find her father sitting motionlessly at the table. When her father turns to look at Bakar, his eyes are pale and misty and almost like he is just a living shell of his former self. Seeing this unnerves Bakar, and he quickly retreats from the house to inform the other keepers. He goes straight to Percival Rackham, who informs Bakar that Isadora has not stopped her research and has been using her magic on students. They make the final decision to confront Isadora once and for all and bring her activities to a halt. The memory then shifts and the keepers proceed to an area in the depths under the school where they see a lone student walking away from an ancient magic created cavern housing the repository Isadora had built under Hogwarts to contain all the pains she had extracted from the students. Bakar firmly tells the student to get back to his common room. They then proceed to the center of the cavern to find Isadora, who steps out to greet them. Isadora is determined to end the suffering of all. Percival Rackham, disappointed in the way Isadora has turned, asks her to put down her wand. It greatly hurt Isadora's feelings at how the keepers just couldn't see the value in what she believed was the best way to use ancient magic instead of hiding it away. This of course leads to an amazing duel between Isadora and the keepers. Her powers, enhanced with all the negative emotion she has been breathing into herself, gives Isadora a major power boost as she sends them all flying with just one spell, knocking former headmistress Niamh Fitzgerald out cold in the process. Rackham and Isadora lock wands in the duel. Rackham starts to lose as his magic is rebounded towards him before Rookwood joins in. Even with their combined power, they're no match for Isadora, who quickly starts to overwhelm them both. Son Bakar, who is tending to Niamh, sees that Rackham and Rookwood are on the losing end of the duel, so before they did, he cast the killing curse, hitting Isadora with it, point blank ending her once and for all. After we get back to the map chamber and the keepers tell us the final repository still lies under Hogwarts, as they could not destroy all of the strands of negative emotions that Isadora had extracted from so many people. So they made the decision to not only keep the secret of the existence of ancient magic, but now the existence of the location of the repositories as well, at least until the time comes when someone is able to destroy them. Until the repositories can be destroyed, the magic used to make them poses a danger to the wizarding world. This is what Rackham explains, hence the name of their organization. They are the Keepers, keepers of an unfathomable secret. The court's conclusion. The Keepers knew that one day, one with the ability to see traces of ancient magic might be seduced by its powers. They made all of the trials and laid the groundwork to lead one with the ability to perceive ancient magic straight to them so that they might test that person's worthiness to inherit the knowledge that they hold and carry on the legacy of the Keepers. Furthermore, all of the artifacts that were found above each of the Keepers' pensieves are the ingredients necessary to craft a special wand that will dispel the powerful ancient magical barrier that was crafted by the Keepers a long time ago to protect the final repository under Hogwarts. Well guys, this is a hell of a lot of work to put into guarding a secret, even if it's a really big one. But one thing we can say for sure is that these trials were truly a testament of the keen minds and powers of the Keepers and what they wanted to instill into the inheritor of their legacy. If you noticed, each Keeper's trial had a uniqueness to them based on the professional ideas of each Keeper respectively. For instance, Rackham's trial tested our dueling capabilities, Rookwood's trial tested our problem-solving acuity, Niamh's trial was a test of our decision-making and acceptance of choice, and Son Bakar's trial was designed to test our mastery of all of the skills we have learned, including the trust of beasts, for we need all of them to pass the final trial. Personally speaking, Niamh's trial is actually my favorite, so if we get enough engagement on the video, I might tell you why I like her trial the most. Which of the Keepers or their trials are your favorites and why? Or do you think Isadora was right and that the Keepers got it wrong to try to hide the existence of the ancient magic from the world? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments. Also, if you like this video, please tell us what other characters you would like to see explained on this channel. Well, that's all I've got for this one, guys. As always, have a great day, be safe out there, and I hope to hear from you soon. The council is dismissed.
We leave our legacy in your hands.